Okay, the recording is live. Chat will be recording. We'll have all of it. Everything should be visible on and be able to be played back. Um, so yeah, for those of you that are joining, you're here live. Drop in the chat where you're listening from, where you're joining us from. We've got a really cool network of individuals here. If you want to share your LinkedIn profiles to make connections, feel free to do that. This is an environment where we collaborate, we learn, and we have the opportunity to make connections. So feel free to utilize that. Say hello. Um, Again, all of this is going to be recorded. It'll be shared. We're going to be able to answer questions as we go. I've got my camera here, my slides here in front of me. I've got chat over here onto my right monitor. So I will watch chat the best that I can and answer questions as they come up. There will be time for questions at the end. I do not anticipate that we will have time for live sourcing afterwards, though. That will have to be saved for another time because we've got a lot to cover today. So let's get started. Um, I had mentioned as we were getting started, there were a lot of new names in the registration. So I want to make sure that I introduce myself and people understand who I am. I am Chris. I'm also known as Aquaman. And yes, I'm Aquaman. This is not an introduction of Jason Momoa or the comic book accurate Aquaman. I'm currently a senior talent sourcer at BECU. I work with some phenomenal individuals over at BECU. We're working on building out some new functions within our sourcing and talent engagement efforts. We're building something new, and it's really cool. We're hoping to be able to replicate it at scale and be able to share it with others down the road. But right now we are building out some new functions, trying some new things, and making waves with talent acquisition over at BECU. I have the moniker Aquaman because I'm a former Justice colleague over at Wayne Technologies. That is where that title comes from. That's where it originated. I worked with Mike Cohen, who's also known as Batman, and anyone who worked with him was given a moniker of a superhero alter ego. And I'm Aquaman. It stuck. I started presenting at conferences, conducting webinars, and it's here. A little bit about me. I'm a Boolean geek. I see Boolean as word math and I lose my mind over it. It's so much fun. My son is very capable with math, and I'm excited for the time that I can start teaching him Boolean so he can blow people's minds as well as to what that looks like. But he's a little young for that. I'm an adventurer and wanderer. I love to explore. I like to travel. I've been to about half of the continental U.S. I've been overseas to the Asian Pacific area, the Philippines, and China specifically. The picture in the bottom right of the screen is me eating a fried tarantula. It was delicious, and 1 out of 1 Chris would do it again. But yeah, I'm an adventurer and wanderer. I like to learn. I like to see things from different perspectives. I'm a dad joke extraordinaire. For about 4 years, I had a 1 a day calendar of dad jokes, and so I've got endless libraries of dad jokes that I pull out when the timing is appropriate. I'm a huge baseball fan and coach. Absolutely love baseball. You can see, behind me is a case full of baseballs. A lot of them with some highly sentimental value. I coach my son's baseball team, and we spend a lot of time doing that. And then the last fun note about me is that I love hot sauce and metal music, which is interesting. It's a lot of fun. My beautiful family thinks I'm crazy because I put hot sauce in everything and I listen to loud music. But that's me as Aquaman. I've been in the industry now for a few years. I've absolutely picked up and loved Boolean with every bit of passion that I can in the industry, and I'm always on a mission to share it. So that's what we're gonna do. Buckle up. This is your warning. I'm assuming everyone here has a fundamental understanding of Boolean operators, specifically how and, or, and not work, and as well as how your parentheses and quotations work. We're not going to be covering that in today's session. We're going to be diving into some more advanced strategies in sourcing outside of LinkedIn utilizing X-Ray. So put your seatbelts on and get ready for a fun ride. Here's our agenda. First things first, we're here to learn some things. So if you have knowledge to impart it in the chat. We're here to share. You're already here, so that means you're awesome. And remember to always be kind. That's my side note agenda. Today's specific agenda is as follows. We're going to start with Doximity, specifically with healthcare recruiting and a platform to leverage with that. I still have a couple challenges I'm running into, but I think there is enough promise there and enough information there to leverage for healthcare recruiters. And I want to share what I'm seeing there. The next is going to be sourcing on GitHub, whether that's GitHub.com or GitHub.io. There will be some recycled slides from previous presentations of mine. It's a favorite of mine as a platform to search from. We're going to be talking about how to find software engineers there. Then we're going to be looking at Meetup groups, and how to leverage the data that is accessible there, and what that can do for your sourcing pipelines. And then we're going to end with Zoom Info, which is really cool and has a kind of a unique nuance to it. And I've got some formatting stuff around it that I think makes it ingestible at scale. But we're going to dive into that, and we'll take a look at these four platforms. I do anticipate this going the full hour. So we will, as you have questions, put them up in the chat, and let's collaborate. But we're going to start with Doximity. If you don't know what Doximity is, it's essentially LinkedIn for healthcare professionals. That's really what it is. The professional medical network for physicians. You can find everything from psychiatrist to pediatrician to orthopedics to surgeon. You can find that here. This is what you see as you start to explore Doximity. You can connect, maybe kind of like a LinkedIn platform. You can search for jobs, maybe kind of like a LinkedIn platform. There's news feeds and secure messaging. When I say it's like a healthcare LinkedIn, that's what it is. The big catch here is that if you are not a healthcare professional, your access to this is highly limited. They don't like sharing this information. It's not a platform that was built for recruiters, but we're going to take a hammer to this. We're going to smash through it, and we're going to see what we can pull out that would be meaningful and helpful for those that recruit in the healthcare industry. I do want to lead this with a really early caveat that if you do work for a healthcare company, there might be some workarounds in signing up for an account and being able to see the platform from the inside. If you don't, you're going to have to stick exclusively to what I've got here, and leverage the information that we're going to talk about. But I think this is going to be exciting for those that do healthcare recruiting, especially if you are with a healthcare provider as opposed to agency side. So first things first, this is what your search engines can see in a Doximity profile. This is what is the publicly available information. And all the conversation around LinkedIn updating their security and is LinkedIn dead or not, and all the fun stuff that we're having as a conversation in recruiting and LinkedIn's platform, this is what we're looking at outside. This is the permissions that Doximity has that we can see through a simple search engine. I've segmented it out so that it wasn't puny. You didn't have to squint your eyes to try and read this. But up at the top, you can see a name and a headline. I can see, for example, Dr. Washington Marin Castro here is a pediatrician in Texas. So I've got that. I can see his office, what office he's currently working at with an office location and phone number. I can see a summary if they've included it. I can see their education and training. I can see their certifications and licensure, professional memberships, any other languages if they've listed it there, and their hospital affiliations. The thing that I cannot see is work history. And that is behind the wall of information security on the Doximity platform. If you are able to sign into the platform, and if you create an account, it'll give you a handful of views so that you can see what it looks like before it kicks you out and says they have to verify your email address. I went through all of this as I was playing with the platform a couple weeks ago. But until you hit that, you can see work history and what that looks like. The really cool thing here is that there's a lot of information that is highly useful here, particularly the summary. So this is where we're going to focus. A lot of the searches that we're going to see is what kind of information would somebody be listing here. Outside of straightforward titles such as pediatrician or orthopedic surgeon, that tells you specifically what they do, we can start looking at some of maybe the specializations within some of the broader terms like psychiatrist, and looking at what kind of modalities do they specialize in. So this is where we're going to start looking at some examples of proximity search. And we're actually going to start in the box on the right. It's really straightforward. Site colon doximity.com. I put in the title pediatrician. I cannot use the in title function that I would use for a LinkedIn X-ray search. It doesn't translate with Doximity that way. So I have to put specifically what I'm looking for, and I'm going to have to do some filtering of information. But I want to look for a pediatrician. I'm going to list what states. Let's say if I was conducting a job search, I wanted to find individuals in Washington or Texas because I could relocate in either of those states. I'm going to put my location there. Then the thing that I have found as I started to conduct searches is line 7, right hand box, in URL colon, putting CV, profile, or pub. Um, Listing those things is going to generate profiles as opposed to jobs that are available, articles, information like that. Um, this is how you're going to hone in and make sure that your search is resulting in people. From what I've gathered, the default that Doximity sets up a profile is that pub, as in public profile. The profile or CV is something that one of these individuals that has a profile in the Doximity platform has gone and adjusted a custom URL. Um, so if you see those, you know that they're active, that those are ones that are most likely up to date and not the default public profile URL that Doximity is setting up for you. And then you'll see on line 9, I put the rangefinder, which if you've never used the rangefinder before, it is a number and then a period, and then another number. And what you're telling your search engine is, I need you to find a number between these dates. I played with this in a couple different facets, and you're going to see it over on line 11 in the left-hand side box as a way to try and look for those that have education starting or completed in that date range. That'll tell me how long they've been in the industry. I'm trying to look at years of experience and relevance, perhaps for licensures, and what that would look like. So that's going to be sample search number 1. Really straightforward. That's a simple Doximity search. In box on the left hand side, we're going to start to see it get a little bit more complex. Some layering and some approaches to utilizing the summary. So you can see the same structure, site colon doximity.com. With LinkedIn, we've been able to use linkedin.com/in, and that tells us to look for profiles. Doximity is not set up that way, so it's a simple site command of doximity.com. Now, line 3, left-hand box, I'm looking at therapy or therapist or psychiatrist. I have found that most of the results here were psychiatrists, which makes sense that as a healthcare platform, it's going to be geared towards those that have doctorate degrees. However, I did get some results that had therapy or therapist in the title as well. So play with it, figure it out if you're exploring what this looks like. Um, that's an option. Keep it in mind. Line 5 is where I'm starting to get into some specialization. Looking at CBT or cognitive behavior, or DBT or dialectical behavior. These are modalities of therapy that I'm looking for a specialization in, particularly among a therapist or psychiatrist, to make sure that they fit the profile of what I would be looking for. If I were to work in an environment where that was the modality that I utilize. Then I threw in some locations, New York or California. You can get granular with this and start putting in cities. Most of it is pulling up what their office location is. It doesn't have their home address for obvious reasons. It's not going to list their home address. So you're really basing your location off of what their office address is on their profile. And then again, line 9, in URL, CV, profile, or pub, to make sure I'm looking at profiles. And then I approached the years of experience thing a little differently. I used an around statement with 2010 through 2014. This is a nested around statement, utilizing the vertical pipe for or. Um, to get around the or limitations with an around statement, tying dates to education. This is a similar strategy that I've utilized on LinkedIn that I have found success with. This is another approach that was able to be replicated on the Doximity platform. And then at last, I threw in summary, which ultimately, after I ran the search, I realized wasn't necessary because all of my CBT or cognitive behavior, DBT or dialectical behavior was picking up profiles that had that in the summary anyway. So that the summary itself wasn't necessary at the end. I left it there in the event that somebody has something entirely different listed in their summary and they've got CBT or DBT certifications. Um, but that was my approach and my thought process behind these two searches. So that's the idea behind building out a Doximity search. Once you've run that, let's talk about how you utilize that data because you can't get into the platform, you can't message in the platform. So what do? Your next one is going to be scraping. Once you're at your Google search results, I utilize Google Search Results Scraper, which is a free Chrome extension, to pull out specifically, the psychiatry search that I ran as I was testing all of this. It didn't present the data in a very ingestible way, so I approached it from two different uh, ideas, conceptual ideas on how to process my data, and this is the one that I settled on for this specific example. I inserted two columns next to column B. You can see they're blank up at the top. And in the first one, I put split equal split B2 to select up there at the top, which returned nothing because it's not going to work for this. But that way, it was able to replicate for the whole column. Um, B2, and then I inserted my delimiter of comma space. I had to make sure I get the quotations around that. And what that did, if you look at column B, I'm going to bring my mouse over, so hopefully we can see this. Um, Over here in column B, you can see Dr. Michael Bruss, comma space MD dash New York psychiatry. Okay. So what I did with my formula down here in B2 is I separated this cell to where it was Dr. Michael Bruss, and then I got rid of the comma and in a separate cell put MD dash New York, comma space New York, which it actually separated that one too. But what I did is then it broke it down into names that I could see here. I copied and then I pasted values only, and then went to C2, and I split by period space to eliminate the doctor. So now I have a simple structure of first names. Ryan Kennedy on row 5 was the exception that did not translate the way that I had intended it to. So I had to do some manual work there. However, the rest of it did. So now I have names in column E. I have the link to their Doximity profile. This is where I hit my roadblock, and I wasn't able to move forward with this specific platform. My email finding tools were not able to pull anything from the Doximity platforms. So if I work at a healthcare, I have a healthcare employer, this is where this might get different, where I would be able to utilize this particular information, take my Doximity search, um, jump into the platform, and message them, access the information there. However, since I don't, I don't have a way to contact them, so I had to separate the names in a way that I could ingest that data into LinkedIn. I hopped over to Chat GPT, had it put the names in an or statement for me, threw it into LinkedIn Recruiter because I have that platform. If you don't have that platform, there's going to be a lot more manual work here. Um, but I ran it through there so that I could create a project and start pulling the individuals here. And it worked quite well. There were varying results in the way that names were presented. It's still not the most efficient, but it did exist. So if you're a healthcare recruiter, here's a solution that you can start to work on and start to play with. Ideally, you're able to sign into the platform, message people in the platform. Um, I'm still learning if there's a workaround for that. But that is Doximity. And the things to consider as you start to approach that from a healthcare recruiting perspective. Is there any questions on Doximity before we move to GitHub? Not seeing any questions there. All right. I think we're gonna. Yes, Dan, I can show you how the search looks in Google. We'll do that at the end because all of them are gonna look similarly. Um, I am gonna jump back one slide though. We're gonna go back one. This is my Boolean. So all I did was copy this and pasted it into Google. And what it did is it generated a bunch of links like you would if you were X-raying into LinkedIn. I'll show what that looks like in a little bit. But great question. Um, so next is GitHub. If you are in tech recruiting, GitHub is and probably should be one of your best friends if you're not using it already. With GitHub, you have two options, and this is something that I've explained a lot in webinars and conversations I've had before. GitHub.com, which is the platform for sharing code and being able to operate as a software engineer. GitHub.io is an information difference. It's a difference, a different platform that software engineers utilizing GitHub can create landing pages for themselves. Um, yes, Myra, I agree. For those that know about GitHub, the shower joke is phenomenal, and I got it from Reddit programmer Humor. This is my short plug in there. If you recruit tech people and you're not on Reddit Programmer Humor, go to it because it is a great way of seeing how people talk about, inject humor, and poke fun at the way that software engineers interact, which allows for organic conversation. As you start to talk with them, you start to understand a lot of common misconceptions. You can make jokes that are relevant and are going to translate. But yeah, we have GitHub.com, GitHub.io. We're going to go over both, as well as how to process your data there. Um, so this is GitHub X-ray components. This is another sample search that we're looking at. Really straightforward. I'm looking site colon GitHub.com. Just like Doximity, there's not a tail end of the URL that is the same for everybody to start looking at profiles. So the way to get around that is line 3. You want to put in the phrases such as joined on, contribution activity, or contributions in the last year to tell your search engine, I'm looking for a profile because I want to look at these specific things. Um, then throw in your specific tech stacks, Python, Java, Ruby. I did a really simple one here for the purposes of illustration, but I'll look for things such as .NET, Azure, which is the space that I operate in over at BECU, and then throw in your locations. New York, for example, for the example search here. But this is how you build out a simple GitHub search. It doesn't take a lot, but what you start to see and is how to process the data as you start looking at these profiles. So here's a couple things that you're looking for. This is a snapshot of a GitHub profile that I had sourced while I was conducting a search a while back. I've highlighted or circled, I guess, a couple things that are most important for the way that I perceive GitHub profiles. The things that I really want to look for is their location. So you can see in this circle on the left-hand side, I can see Seattle. So I knew he was in the right place, at least according to his GitHub profile. I can see contributions in the last year, which tells me that he's active on the platform. I likely have opportunities to see code that he is writing or has contributed to, which then allows me to contact him, and we're going to look at that. And then I can see down here on the bottom right, I can see how effective is he as I start looking at these. He's spending about a third of his time in code review, 30%, a third of his time in commits, which is contributing to code. And then a little over a third of his time in pull requests, which is asking to borrow code from somebody else, with no time spent in issues. So I can see that he's effective, he's collaborative, utilizes this platform quite well. And then you can see down here in the bottom, I've got an arrow pointing to contribution activity. This is simply to highlight where I can start looking at the specific breakdowns of what that is. If you're now understanding the shower joke, the green tiles are representative of days in which this individual contributed to a GitHub repository or wrote code. So you can see 2 weeks in December, nothing. 2 weeks in April, nothing. 2 weeks in August, nothing. I can see that those are vacation times. He was not working. Um, so good for him taking vacation. But the rest of it, I can see very active in writing and contributing code. The dark green obviously is heavy. That was a day that was a lot of activity. But these are some of the things that you're going to look for on a GitHub profile to understand whether it's going to be of value to you. You're going to be able to utilize things. So we're going to go live here. Look at repositories, how to find an email, look at the contribution activity. This is I've already got a profile here so that I can demonstrate what that looks like, and evaluate the currency of data. So we're going to pop out here and jump over to Long Long's LinkedIn, not LinkedIn, GitHub profile. We're not on LinkedIn today, guys. I promise I'll remember that. So the things that I want to see, again, location over here on the left-hand side of the screen. I can see that he's in New York. Repositories is where he's writing his code. So I can see he's got 41 repositories. The popular repositories, think on your LinkedIn profile, this is like the featured section on your profile. This is his featured section. These are the popular repositories that he wants to keep tabs on or wants to highlight. And I can see 7 contributions in the last year, which tells me a couple of things. Most likely, his place of employment does not use GitHub as a collaborative space for writing code. They have some other system they utilize, which is fine. I don't need to have necessarily currency of data here, because what I can see is that in February, he had 4 contributions in private repositories. So I know he's using GitHub. This is an active account. When I jump into his repositories, there's a couple different things that I'm looking for. Want to see, I want to sort by type, and I want to go to sources. If it lists it as a source, that means he was the author of this particular repository. I can see his most recent one is a couple years old. That's fine. I don't need it to be the most recent because I can see that he has been contributing as recently as this month. But this is how I'm going to contact him. I'm going to click into his repository. I can see commits. This is the key here. I'm going to click the commits and find one created by this individual. So Long Jin right here, committed. All I need to do is click on this commit, and this is where people's minds get blown. Once I'm in, this is the code. I don't care what's here. I'm going to come up to the URL, end of the URL, put .patch. Hit enter. And now I'm going to see the source code for this particular page. Oh, too big or too long to generate. That wasn't supposed to happen, guys. We're going to jump back and we'll go to his other commit, because if that happens, this is how we get around it. Okay, I'm in this commit. We'll go .patch. And it should work. It's not working, guys. This is embarrassing. This is what happens when we go live and things don't work the way that they're supposed to. If you use that .patch trick, and we can do a quick search here. We'll go site : github.com. All right. So now we're truly live, guys. This is what we're seeing. We're going to come over to Hayes. I can see he's in Seattle. He's got a handful of followers, which is great. A ton of repositories. It's someone very active on GitHub. I'm going to come back over to sources, make sure that he's the author. Updated recently. We're going to come back in. We'll go commits, and we'll jump to the initial commit. Come over here to the end and hit .patch. Boom, it worked. Told you guys, I promise it works. What I can see on the second line here is I can see the origination of this commit. I can see it's from Hayes Clark, and I can see his email right here. This is the email address that he signed up with GitHub. You want to be able to reach software engineers outside of LinkedIn InMails where they're already getting bombarded. Here you go. This is your avenue. This is what you do. You come here. So that's GitHub. GitHub searching in a nutshell. Like I said, we've got a lot of information, so we're going to go over a whole bunch. So next, we're going to move on to GitHub.io. Meyer, I see you have a question. Does GitHub show only their contributions using their personal profile? Yes. Unless they have linked their employer email to their personal account, which is not often. It's only going to show their personal profile. They likely have a separate account set up for their professional uh, coding, if GitHub is the location of choice for them to do that. Not a dumb question at all. It's a tricky one. However, you do find personal emails, and people like to respond there, and they get really impressed when you say, "Hey, this is how I found you. I saw your GitHub profile, and this is how I got your email." So this is a GitHub scrape. I'll jump back live so that we can say. So let's say this is my search, right? We're right here. This is my search. I run my scrape. This is all of the information it's going to pull here. That then translates as I drop it into a spreadsheet over to this. A couple things that you want to keep in mind. Column B is the name and GitHub username. So separate that by spaces with a split formula, and now you've got it really easy to digest, put together names, pull out uh, the usernames for the GitHub platform. Column C is your link to their GitHub account, um, and column D is their profile information. So once it's in here, column D is really easily searchable. They've now got this information. Hit Control F to look anywhere within the in the sheet. Type in the things that you're looking for, whether that's your keywords, your tech stack, whatever that might be. It'll pull up here. This is helpful information. Things to look for. Um, but yeah, that's GitHub in a nutshell. We're moving fast. So whoops, did I jump? I jumped too much. So now we're talking about GitHub.io. Again, this is a information platform for software engineers to essentially create a landing page or a resume for them, as well as other purposes. But this is how I utilize it. Site GitHub.io. You got to get that last part right. If you put in this same search with GitHub.com, you're going to get some interesting results. You will still get results, but it's going to be different and far fewer. However, with GitHub.io, I now have their resumes being put together. I can see, I put GitHub.io. I now have gmail.com, or this is how I'm searching for resumes. I'm looking for somewhere that they list their email, or in the URL they're listing as a resume or a CV. For this particular search, I was looking for somebody with Python experience listed out in their resume, and then machine learning, whether that's represented as ML or machine learning, and then New York based. So this is a really straightforward GitHub.io search. It doesn't take a lot of complexity to utilize this if you are a tech recruiter that is sourcing for tech candidates. And what that's going to look like is this. We're going to pull out this search. We'll drop it into my search bar. Same thing. We're going to see these lists of URLs of people just listing their resumes. These are out there for anybody to find. So if I click into Henry Yang's, I've got his resume. This is the same resume he would be submitting if he was applying for a job. I happen to know that this one is not quite up to date because I've looked at this one before. But I can see I've got his email here. If I wanted to email him directly, say, "Hey, I found your resume online. I saw the cool stuff that you were doing over at AWS." I can also see his LinkedIn profile, which is how I know it's not up to date, because over on his LinkedIn profile, he's not with AWS anymore. He's with DoorDash. And has been for a little over a year. So keep in mind it's going to be some dated information. But for this one, here's my information. I've got a resume. I can see projects. I can see skills, contact information with a LinkedIn. All of this is usable information that we can leverage to source people outside of LinkedIn. Ultimately, it took me back to his LinkedIn profile, which was great. But I've got information here. Start throwing in dates, particularly recent dates, right? Throw in 2023, 2024. Now I know it's up to date, or at least most likely highly recent. And again, you've got all of this information here. All you got to do is scrape it. Um, and I utilize Google Web Scraper. It's this one right here. Google search results scraper. I'll send the link out with the slides and the recording for viewing. But that is how you utilize GitHub.io, right? So we're going to jump back into here. And this is what it looks like. And this is why I really like scraping from GitHub.io because I can now sort by emails. Uh, this does get picked up. Obviously, not all of them. This particular sheet had almost 200 profiles, but 31 of them, I could see their email without even having to look into their resume. That doesn't mean that the ones that don't have it listed aren't there. It just means I don't have to look for them on those 31 as I start considering reaching out to these particular individuals. Um, and it listed out as title. The title of their webpage is going to be whatever they want. Odds are it's going to be their name. You're going to have some version of their name attached to CV, resume, whatever that might be. But now I've got all of this at a disposable spreadsheet that I can now access um, with easy access to emails. There's that. That's GitHub.io. Do we have any questions about GitHub.com or GitHub.io before we move on to utilizing Meetup? I know I'm moving fast, so hopefully you guys are keeping up. Um, it doesn't look like we have any questions at the moment, so we will move on to Meetup. So if you're unfamiliar with the Meetup platform, as I was until I started looking into this as a super accessible sourcing platform. Meetup is a social media platform. I think like sourcing on LinkedIn or then pivoting to Facebook or to Instagram to TikTok. Those are all options. I don't love them. I have not had success with that. I'm starting to play with Meetup, and I'm seeing some good results. I messaged an individual on the platform, scheduled an interview, and I just introduced him to my hiring manager, so I can attest that this works. It is possible. It is a lot more manual than your LinkedIn recruiter and whatnot, but it is a different place to find people. The whole concept of Meetup is that you've got special interest groups of that people are interested in a topic or a number of topics, and they come together for virtual or in-person meetings, which makes it searchable. And the cool thing is that it doesn't take a lot of work to find the groups that you want to locate. These are two example searches here. I left software engineering world up here, the tech world, in the top box there. Site colon meetup.com. It's as simple as that. Then I put in the things that I was looking for: software, architect, or data. And then I listed in the title, as one way to approach this, Texas. I didn't want anything that was that mentioned Texas somewhere. I wanted to make sure that this was rooted in Texas, so I attached it to the title. And then I told the URL, I don't want you to pull back anything that is /find /. Because what I noticed as I started to utilize Meetup was that X-raying into Meetup and looking at groups in a large number in a Google search results, it was also giving me results that said find software groups in Texas, and I didn't want those. So I went in, found out what the URL code was, dropped out the find, and here I am. The second search down below, you can see line one again, site colon meetup.com. Really straightforward. This next one I used in a round statement. I wanted to find individuals that are involved in or interested in SaaS sales. So I wanted to give some flexibility depending on what the title or the format might be and how they present it. What maybe it's sales professionals interested in SaaS products. Maybe it's SaaS sales meetup, blah 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 blah. But the way that I wanted to be inclusive was putting sales around. I can see I left my number off there, so don't roast me too hard on that one. My final search did include it. but sales around, and then I put 5 when I caught my mistake on my search. And then New York, looking specifically for locations or groups that are tied or related to New York. And then I realized I was getting some interesting responses that I didn't like, and that was I was getting still the same find, and I dropped my forward slash and it met my needs, but I was also getting topics as opposed to meetup groups. So I dropped the in URL topics to make sure that I wasn't resulting in those. And we'll look at what this looks like here shortly. But as you start diving into the world of Meetup, this is what you're looking at. This is the example of a landing page for a Meetup group. Again, you can tell I do this for work because I've got my multi-highlight highlighting .NET and Azure, as those are common focuses for me at and my work at BECU. The things that I wanted to look for was reading the what we're about, figuring out what this group specifically does. I'm recruiting an Azure architect, ideally based out of Texas. So this is where this search was coming from. I can now see over here on the right hand side, you can see join this group, which is not in the circle. So you could join the group if you wanted, but circled, I can see the organizers, which are great people to message. And second, I can see members, which is circled by the green circle that I've got inside of the large one. Essentially, there's two approaches to recruiting off of Meetup. Message the organizers and sponsor a pizza night, a get together. If your company has the budget to do that, utilize it. Ideally for smaller groups. I don't want to provide pizza for 1,300 people. That sounds expensive and ineffective. However, for smaller groups that are maybe tied to a smaller geographical area, this could be a wonderful approach for you to utilize. The next is messaging members directly. And this is the route that I took. So you can see in the green circle says see all. You can click this and see all the members. Your search engines cannot do this. So you cannot tell, you'll see the URL once you start jumping into where it says see all. You see all the members there. You can scrape that page, and I use Instadata Scraper for that one because it's not a Google search result. So I had to change scrapers, but using Instant Data Scraper to pull the list of the members as pretty far and pretty deep and into the list of 1,300 members here. And your search engines can't see the group members. You have to be logged into the platform to utilize this. Meetup is free. You don't have to pay to sign up for the platform. You don't have to pay to join these groups. So sign up, start looking. So it's a great resource. This one is highly time consuming. It's not one that is particularly efficient. However, it can be incredibly effective if leveraged the right way. So once you're looking at the member list, again, I utilized Instant Data Scraper. I can scrape the list of members, and this is a snapshot of what that looked like. This is from a search that I ran to contact Azure architects in the Texas state of Texas. Here in column A, this is the member profile. This is another thing, unfortunately, you can't X-ray into. You can see all of them are meetup.com/members. If you put that in to your search engine, it will return you with nothing. It doesn't work. Google can't see into that. However, the link does exist, which means that I can have access to a direct link. So I scrape the list with Instant Data Scraper. I can see the name that they have listed with their account, and I can see when they joined in column D, when they joined this particular group. This then took a little bit of work of flipping through them to see. I started with those that had joined most recently. You can see 2023. There was only 3 new members. This group wasn't highly active. However, I recognized a couple names that I had seen and heard in conversations that I then tunneled down into. So this is what that scrape is going to look like. Add columns, keep notes, start going. The things that you're going to want to see, and I did not include it here, is we're going to jump right back live. And we're going to go site meetup. we're going to jump into the Meetup platform. This is how I approach this. I can see members. This group is huge. So for the example that we're going to utilize here, we're going to come down to um, this individual. So I can see here what his interests are. He's got arts and entertainment, volunteering, watching movies. I can learn a lot about this individual. I can also see where he is a member of, and I can now chat with him. So I can message him and say, hey, how's it going? I saw you're a group of this. You're part of this meetup group. I'm looking for people who are interested in this particular thing, right? In this instance, I'm looking for sales, so New York B2Bers. I'm looking for a SaaS sales, sales executive, and would love to chat with you about an opportunity. Here's the job description, whatever. Here's the pay range. This is what we're looking at. You got to be careful not to sound spammy with this. These need to be highly tailored outreaches. So there's not an automation, easy way to do this with a messaging platform. That's not going to work. So these are our individual messages. Build a spreadsheet, keep track. But if you're taking your sourcing off of LinkedIn because X-Ray's not cutting it for you anymore, or you're just looking to diversify your sourcing efforts, this is a great place to start finding people. The cool thing is that I can also start looking for um, I can also start pulling the names of these individuals and start looking for them on LinkedIn too, and say, "Hey, I saw on LinkedIn that you're working here. I also saw on Meetup you're part of this group. Would love to chat with you and learn more about this." Um, so keep in mind, this is very relationship building sourcing. It's not high volume. This is not at a highly scalable level, but it is quite effective if you're approaching it from a relational standpoint. Um, Wonderful. So Zoom info. I know Ashley is here on the call. I have to give her a huge shout out for this because after my webinar last month, she messaged me and was like, "Hey, have you thought about using Zoom info?" And I was like, "Oh no, I haven't. I had the platform with my last employer, and I would search in the platform, but I'd never thought to X-ray into the platform." So this was, it was eye-opening to me in a way to consider how do I start diversifying or looking at things from a different approach. Zoom Info keeps some pretty current data, and it'll list emails. That being said, it doesn't give you the full email because they want you to pay for the platform. If you're unfamiliar with the Zoom Info platform, this is not Zoom, the video conferencing technology. This is a data company. So Wikipedia, I'll let you read that if hopefully you already are. But really, what it is they put together information of individuals. It'll list their name, their occupation, their contact information, and they want to sell you that data. Go and find yourself on Zoom Info, see what data that they've got. That's really interesting. Um, but they want to sell it to you. And I say no. I laugh. We're not going to do that. So I'm going to tell you how to get around, or a way to try and get around this. Again, not super at scale, but it can be highly effective. Here's a couple examples of Zoom info searches and some of the searches that you can run and get results. You can see the top box there. Again, I'm looking at sales. I've got a couple different facets to it. I'm looking for sales or account, and I'm looking for executive or representative. I don't care what their title is, and how that translates. Maybe they're a sales representative, sales executive, account representative, account executive. I don't care what the structure is, but I want to make sure I'm capturing both. So I'm being inclusive about the way that their information is presented to me on Zoom Info. And let's say I'm looking for somebody in Chicago or Indianapolis. Two large cities, not that far apart. Maybe they live in between the two. They'd only have to come into the office, I don't know, once a week, once every other week. I'm going to run this search. I'm going to figure out who is in that general area. Next, down in box number 2, bottom left, you can see I've got nurse or CNA looking at Utah or Idaho. Healthcare employees, another option that you can look at. I've got a friend who is an ER nurse, and she's a phenomenal individual, but she talks about all the paperwork that they have to do. They're constantly on their computers. You ping their work inbox and say, "Hey, I have an opportunity for you." You catch them on the right day, they might be ready to go. They might be ready to jump ship. This is a way to do that. The information available to you through Zoom Info is going to be predominantly work information. You're not going to see as many personal email addresses. If you're paying for the platform, you might be able to, but if you're bootlegging it like I am, you're going to see what their company domain is in their email structure, and then all you have to do is search and say, "Hey, hey Google, what is the employee email structure for employees at this company?" Um, if you have Rocket Reach or you're familiar with their platform, you can also put it there. It'll tell you. It'll say, "Oh, 80 some odd percent of employees at this company have their email address listed as a period, first letter of their name, period, last name at company." Well, cool. Now I've got it. All I have to do is try and send, and it's either going to bounce or it's uh, going to come back to me, or it's going to get through. If it bounces, all I do is have to pivot to whatever the other option is. The last box that I've got down here is property managers. This is a profession that I really struggled to recruit for when I was at a property management company. I utilized Indeed, which is a paid platform, and I could find people there, but taking it outside of that, I really struggled to find good information. Zoom Info was producing that for me. I could find those that specialized in LIHTC, which is low income housing or tax credit housing. I could find people that were property managers, service managers, maintenance managers. That exists, and because I've worked for a property management company, I know they all have an email and they all check it. And so it was a fantastic way to think outside of the box for me and how to approach um, contacting those that are harder to find. So start thinking about different ways that, or different industries that are harder to find people, and this is a way to approach that. This is Zoom Info. This is how I leverage it. As I pull my search results, again, this is Google Search Results Scraper. It doesn't process data in a way that's very pretty. So I put together a little step-by-step guide on how to make your data ingestible, how to utilize it. It's a lot. I'm not going to go over all of this right now and what it looks like, but if you follow this step-by-step guide, what is going to happen is you can now create where we've got column E, F, and G, a name, which is going to still have muddied up data, but that can be cleaned up fairly easily. I can see title and I can see company. You'll see a few blank slots in here. These are people that their format did not follow the standard for Zoom Info. Um, but the same concept will still work. Once you've got all of this here, I can now sort by company or sort by title. Um, Obviously, title is going to be very similar, but I can sort by company and start figuring out at scale which people am I pulling a lot of results for. This is my Chicago, Indianapolis search. Maybe I'm noticing that one of my big competitors in Chicago. This is a great way to access their information. Who's on their sales team, who does X, Y, and Z. Keep in mind with Zoom Info, you can search companies. If your hiring manager has a list of competitors that they really want to hire somebody from, you can include that in your search, and it's going to return. Um, the last catch with Zoom Info is that it doesn't give you their full information. Again, it gives you the at company domain for their email address. So then you have to do the legwork if you don't have email finding tools to just do a quick Google search. How are these emails most likely to be formatted? And Google AI's assistance does a really good job of doing this. Or if you're more of a Bing user, Copilot also does the same thing. It'll tell you how emails are structured and how to utilize them. So this is how I have started sourcing off of Zoom Info. I haven't had high returns on this yet, but it is one that I'm starting to leverage and will continue to experiment with. This is how to take all of the data and ingest it. I know I operated with the understanding that everybody would understand how these search result scrapers work. So my apologies of what that looks like. I'm happy to show that. But this is a search on Zoom Info. All that being said, we have covered a lot in 55 minutes. Uh, who has questions? What questions do you have? How can I help? because I just word vomited for 50 straight minutes. Maya, great to hear that Meetup is working for you. Yeah, that's exactly right. Meetup is very relational based sourcing. You host an event, people will remember that. To showcase, let's see, Dan, you had asked how the search looks like in Google. So we will go to a Doximity search here. Site Doximity. And we're going to look for we'll just go with pediatrician because that's the one I was running earlier. Pediatrician, um, and let's look for someone based in, let's say, Florida. So this is what the examples and any of these platforms that you search, you're going to get your standard Google search pages, and all that it takes at this point is to utilize your Chrome extension. And for Google searches, I utilize Google Search Results Scraper because it's phenomenal. And all I do is hit collect search results, and it'll scroll for me as long as there are search results. So it collected 301. Save my results to an Excel spreadsheet. Done. And there it is. Um, so this is how I would run this. At that point, I would then open up a um, new spreadsheet. I use Google Docs because it's what I'm familiar with, and all I'll do is I'll import my spreadsheet. So if I import, we'll come up here. That's my most recent one, and import data. And now I've got my information. It's going to take a minute as it thinks and decides what to do. But this is how I turn my search results into essentially a ad hoc Excel spreadsheet CRM. I've now got all of my information here. But that's how I approach it. We'll come back over to the spreadsheet. Dan, I wanted to make sure I followed up with you and what that looked like. Does anyone have any questions before we wrap this up? All right. Well, if that's it, we are at the top of the hour. I have to go. I don't actually have any fish. I'm Aquaman. My fish need me. My metaphorical fish is Aquaman need me, and I've got to go. But this was a pleasure to share some of the stuff that I've been working on, ways to get around LinkedIn, or how to utilize platforms outside of LinkedIn. As a slight caveat, I don't think LinkedIn X-Ray is dead. Last month, I shared some thoughts around what is happening and why I think that the platform is going to disappear as an X-ray searchable source. I'm going to backpedal on that, and some conversations I've had with people way smarter than me seem to indicate otherwise. So take this particular presentation as a way to diversify your sourcing efforts and a way to start building some relational sourcing and ways to reach out to those in either a way that other recruiters aren't, or in a way that is or finding people that other people are not finding altogether. When we all utilize the same platform, we're all seeing the same people. So have fun with it. Run with something else. If you're not connected with me on LinkedIn already, here's my LinkedIn URL. I'm Chris Aquaman Carver. I don't have that long hair anymore. I should probably update that picture. Actually, I think I had updated on my last presentation, and I went with an old slide. But this is me. Feel free to send me an email or send me a LinkedIn request if you have any other questions. All of this information will be sent out tomorrow once the software is done processing it, and I can share the video. I'll send out the slides as well as the video recording. And then the last thing, I'll attach the data scrapers that I utilize and which ones I utilize them for. So you don't have to try and find that in the slides. But that will take us to the end of today. And I really appreciate everybody coming and participating. Thank you so much.